I honestly don't know how to say this, but we're even more in danger right now. And yes, after the ceasefire.
Now, it ain't been more than 48 hours since the Gaza peace deal has gone into action, and already we have more massacring taking place in Gaza at the hands of the usual suspects. Now, if you're to listen to any of these wokety woke folk on the left, you would likely hear something of this sort. The reason why Gazans, quote unquote Palestinians, found themselves in the place that they were, which was essentially seeing their homes turned into dust, was because of the evil genocidal maniacs that are the Israelis. Now, in reality land, the reason why they found themselves in such circumstances is because they chose a governing body for themselves in Hamas that was hell-bent on the destruction of the Jewish people for no other reason than them being Jewish. And so they decided to start something that they could not finish. The end. There was no genocide, unless you're speaking of the genocide that was attempted by Hamas and those who are their instigators and promoters. So that being said, who is being slaughtered in Gaza now? Well, just so happens to be more quote unquote Palestinians at the hands, well, I think I have a few people that may be able to expound on this one a little better than I. So let's go ahead and just get into it, shall we?
I honestly don't know how to say this, but we're even more in danger right now. And yes, after the ceasefire. I honestly don't know how to say this, but we're even more in danger right now. And yes, after the ceasefire. War is over, bombing is over, but killing is not. And I can't really talk much about it, but all I can say is that some people here are literally losing their minds. Crime is rising. Anyone with a weapon thinks they have power over life and death. And people, instead of help, they're literally finishing each other. I mean, if that war didn't finish us, are we gonna finish each other? I survived war, bombing, hunger, fear, and now I have to survive people madness. And if you really want to do something to help me, please pray for me to get out of this place as soon as possible, because as I already said, that war might be over, but there's another war going on inside here. We have to survive.
Now, here's the thing. For the last 2 years straight, we have been under a full-blown propaganda campaign that has been initiated by those who look to destroy the Western world. Should not be a secret at this point. And as a part of this propaganda campaign has been the messaging of how Palestine is the victim in this, or so-called Palestine, allegedly Palestine, is the victim in the story. That the very same people who initiated the conflict by massacring, R-wording, butchering, and taking captive of innocent people are somehow victims. You got to ask a leftist about how that one there works. Now, we found ourselves in a place where I would say a majority of the population buys into this narrative of a genocide and starvation, etc., not factoring in that there was a terror organization, is a terror organization who is still mostly endorsed by those very same people. Now, maybe a little harsh in the way that I deliver this, but I don't mean to trigger or offend. It's just that the truth happens to do that all by itself. The overarching culture of the so-called Palestinian people, the Palestinian culture or Palestinianism as an ideology, is depraved. It is demonic. It is evil. It is a death cult because it is rooted in Islam that at its core, at its foundation, is a death cult. These are people that will take lives for no other reason than to advance their ideology. Now, many like to say, well, all religions are the same and you find that in every religion, and that's not true. That's an absolute lie. Which other religion states the following? Those who don't believe what you believe must be executed, must be blown up, must be taken into captivity and tortured. I'll wait. Now, let's go ahead and get into the second clip here, which at first glance seems to be a heartwarming moment of families reunited. Yeah, I can't play that out because there's copyrighted music. Now, according to the propagandists, this is just a beautiful moment of a father reunited with his daughter after 20 years of captivity at the hands of the Jews. In reality, what is going on over here, is a man who was responsible for more than 10 bombings, including one of a school bus filled with children, where some of those kids lost their lives at the hands of this maniacal man. That's who that is. And he was in prison because of what he did. Now, this is what I am not a fan of when it comes to the peace deal, that there was a side of the negotiation that freed a lot of these psychopaths back into society, or essentially into their quote unquote society. So I guess they got to deal with them for now until they look to make their way back into essentially where they were imprisoned for taking innocent people's lives. So what kind of culture celebrates such people? And there's multitude of these videos coming out of Pallywood or Gazawood now. They're doing the old song and dance and putting on the theatrics to have the rest of the world empathize and sympathize with them and feel their compassion, instead of the attention being on the actual hostages who are stripped from their families. It is now being placed upon criminals, terrorizers, and some of the most diabolical types of individuals that you could never imagine, at least many of us in the West, at least not at this point. If we continue to go the way that we're going, then we will probably be familiar with this ourselves outside of September the 11th, 2001. So we're going to go ahead and go through that. Next here we have, obviously there was starvation taking place during the last 2 years, right? Now, of course, they don't tell you that the starvation was at the hands of Hamas or at the hands of other quote unquote Palestinians. 90% of the food that was going in was intercepted by these individuals, and they used the food as a means to profit so they can continue to dig more tunnels to terrorize more people in essence. But a day after the war ends, they have the opening of a restaurant called Nova. You cannot make this stuff up. Let me see if I can find my original video here. I realized that I did not edit that out in the way I should have. So let me go ahead and bring this up here so y'all can really get eyes on it. Look at this. Which one? Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. Y'all look at this here. Look at this here. Definitely can't play that music. Look at this. Nova. Again, what sort of culture is this that would mock the dead in such a way? They would have to be depraved at some level. Now, I just so happen to believe, according to my own theology, that these people worship a demonic spirit. Their God is not a true God. This God is a God of war, essentially of violence, is a God of destruction. That's who these people bow to. That's why their culture is the way that it is. And their ideology stems from this entity and this being. And if you read into it, you'll realize that you cannot separate this mentality from the people, not because they're born this way, but instead because it is their culture. And culture rules the day. If you have a Christian culture, you're going to have a very different result than if you have an Islamic culture. How do I know this? Because when you go to nations that are consider themselves as Christian nations, you see the drastic difference in values and morals and things of that nature. I mean, even the law is different. There is a Sharia when you're in Islam. Now, if you prefer that, if that's what you're into, then you have the freedom, free will, God-given. You can go and express that in one of those nations. But as far as bringing that into what we got going on here, absolutely not. And I believe, just as my brother Douglas Kindred, that if we continue to go down this very same path of denying, neglecting, abandoning God and his word and his way and his will, we will find ourselves in the very same place that a lot of our brothers and sisters in the Western world already have. But I digress. Let us continue. Now, I have a video here I've not yet watched, but it's from a trusted figure, actually a good friend of mine. Her name is Avery Day, and we actually have an interview out. We're likely going to make more content in the future, but yeah, she is a brilliant mind, and I'm sure that this is going to be on point as per usual. Let's go ahead and get into this. Oh, I'm like, am I tripping? She's speaking straight lip syncing. Okay, here we go.
Where are my Free Palestine people at? Because this is Hamas today killing innocent Palestinians in the streets, literally just lining them up in the street and then killing them. And then you see all the Palestinians around cheering for a public execution and death. I thought we were all about like the wellness and the safety of Palestinians, because look at Hamas's terror hasn't stopped.
Wait, I'm gonna stop you right there, Avery. So this is the same sort of thing we get from the left, mostly the left, when they're okay. Black Lives Matter. When do Black Lives matter? When a black life is lost at the hands of a white person. Okay, when do Black Lives not matter? When a black life is lost at anybody else's hands, including another black person. So Palestinian lives, quote unquote, Palestinian lives, only matter when they're taken by a Jew. But if one of their own is executing them, then, well, go ahead, knock yourselves out.
Israel's out, but Hamas's terror hasn't stopped. And you can watch the full video on X. They do, in fact, them. It's horrible. It is awful. This information is free to you. So yeah, I'm all about free Palestine from Hamas. Problem is, the majority of Palestinians actually do support Hamas and support this kind of terror because they love death as much as the Jews love life. They tell us that over and over and over again. Also,
death cult, a religion centered around death. That is incompatible with God, period.
I think they've forgotten to keep continuing to push the narrative because they are now posting videos of very healthy children that do not look like they have been through a genocide. They have new clothes on. They look very well nourished, and
it's probably copywritten music.
Out the window now.
I'm just gonna pause it, just hopefully to give us a break here. The music companies don't play. When it comes to music, they will shut your whole video down. It has happened more than once.
I don't see a starving child protesting the ceasefire.
Yeah, okay. We might just have to get into this conversation, Avery, on camera and break this all the way down. So, yeah, this was definitely something that I had assumed would happen from the very beginning. Not because I'm a genius, but because it's pretty straightforward. The same people who had, a Ukrainian flag, for like 3 days, they had like a Chinese flag. It was a whole TikTok situation was going down. They put the Chinese flags in there. Goodness, what else do they have in there? It's the original Black Square crowd, or some of them might actually be too young for the Black Square. Back in like 2016, what was it? It was like, what was it? When was the Black Square phenomenon? Do y'all remember? IG, everybody posting the black squares, Black Lives Mattered. I've saved a black life today. I posted a black square on my IG. So yeah, the very same crowd or very same archetype of individual is now finding themselves deeply perplexed as to where they turn now. What do we do with ourselves now? But I digress. This is a culture that terrifies the innocent. This is a culture that looks to destroy those who believe in civic liberties and freedoms. This is a culture that would do what was done on October 7, 2023 over and over and over again until the job is done. These are people that are given over to a reprobate mind. They're given over to evil. These are people who need deliverance. And I'm not saying this is an outsider. This is, I guess a misconception for some who just label me flat out, you're Islamophobe. Well, I guess they use that as a silencing tactic or as a shaming tactic to stop you from speaking. But I actually have spent quite a bit of time surrounded by Muslims. Quite a bit of time. Lived in the midst of. I just put it that way. You guys will know the full story as the time continuum continues on. But this isn't me waking up one day and feeling this type of way. This is me knowing from what I have seen, experienced, and lived in the midst of. And I know that these individuals are oppressed, some possessed. There is abuse in the households of spouses or of wives. There is constant battering, yes, but there is constant back and forth, yelling, screaming, torment. There is anger. There is misery. There is lying, deceit. Now, of course, this just sounds like, everyday living for the unredeemed human being, because we are all sinners and we are saved by a holy God. But you see it in the people's eyes that there is a level of bondage there. And it's ironically enough encapsulated with the hijab, the veiling, the covering up of identity or humanity. You see it. When you're around it, you see it. And it starts to click and it starts to make sense. And you realize, of course, these sorts of evils can come from such a mentality and ideology. Look, every human has been given the opportunity to come back into relationship with the Creator. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, so that none may perish but have everlasting life. There is no condemnation when you're in him, but apart from him, there is only condemnation. The wages of sin are death. That's clear. I'm never going to sugarcoat or water down the actual gospel. I'm not going to give you the airy-fairy Sunday school version without the whole entire. No, we're not going to do that. So all of us have been given that free gift if we so choose. So it's not the people themselves who are different than any other human being, but instead it is what these people have given themselves over to. All can be regenerated. All can be brought back into alignment or into relationship with God. All have the opportunity, but how many will? And how many would rather continue to endorse and support some of the most heinous activities that we have seen as a people? And this is throughout history. I don't believe it's a cursed people because they cannot escape this. I believe the curse is upon them because they will never come to the true living God. And so we're experiencing a lot of the ramifications of that in the Western world as we have lost our relationship with God. Make sure to check out my interview with Dr. Douglas Kindred, a brilliant man when it comes to theology. And we both had the same insights, him earlier than I did, as far as, wow, the West is losing to the God of Islam because we have abandoned our own God. I mean, at this point, any sort of little weak God will do. Any sort of, depraved God that is not the true living God will do the job. I mean, if you're praising yourself and you're worshiping materialism and, your vanity and things of that nature, then forget about it. You already lost. And yes, I'm always going to bring the spiritual element of this because this is inherently spiritual first. And if you don't understand that, you will be drowning in policy. And you'll realize at some point, man, it doesn't matter who does what. The policy won't do much. You got to get into them scriptures and you will understand quickly what we're up against. But you'll also understand the opportunity to be on the side of he who has already conquered. He who's already won the battle. He who has been given dominion over all things. So, yeah, we're going to see how this thing plays out. But I pray for the children in Gaza, the kids who are being raised into this depravity, being raised to hate their neighbors because of what they are. I pray that there is a revival that takes place in this small little strip of land. I really do. Because if it doesn't happen, then it's only going to be more of the same. It's going to be more of the same. I'm thankful and I'm grateful to God Almighty for bringing back home the hostages. And there is a remembrance of those who are lost. Not in bitterness, I would pray. It's not going to serve anybody, to be honest. Not in bitterness or resentment or any of these things, but in remembrance of them. It's possible to have a heart of forgiveness while still being in a place of discernment. You don't have to make company with darkness and evil, but it is also necessary to forgive. And that's going to be for our own benefit. We will turn into the very thing that we hate when we hold on to hatred. That's just the facts about it. And so that's something I would not desire for anybody. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Now, if you'd like to stay around, make sure to click that little subscribe button down there, or you can show some love by going to the description below and clicking on the button titled Buy Me a Coffee. Leave a little something there, or click on the Cash App. Leave a little something here. Till the next time, peace.
I've been up for hours, I've been up for days, staring at the ceiling, I've been counting strays, I've been in my feelings, I've been out of mind, I've been getting visions of the other kind, I've been up for weeks, I'm in the count of blessings over count of sheep, I can never be the type to limit when it comes to me, I used to be the pleaser for the people, I ain't